Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Known Live. This morning, I am really excited to welcome Gina Bingham from the New Haven Public Library onto the show. But before I bring her on, let me introduce myself. I'm Barb Nangle. I'm the community manager at Known Co-working. I want to say a few words about Known before we bring Gina on. She's going to be talking about some of the amazing free resources that the New Haven Free Public Library offers, with a special focus on nonprofits today. But before we bring her on, I want to talk about Known, which is a dynamic co-working community to connect people across their fields of expertise, endeavors, and experiences. Though Known started as a space in downtown New Haven and is still the only co-working space downtown New Haven, we moved our community to the virtual world once quarantine hit. As a result, we now have three virtual programs. We have Digital Media Sync, this one, which is Known Live, and Pivot Talk. Digital Media Sync is your window to the digital world and is hosted weekly on Tuesdays at 8:30 by Julia Gooch. She's the social media maven of Agents of Branding. Known Live is a place for entrepreneurs, artists, creators, thinkers, educators, and community members to show who they are, what they do, who they serve, and how. And then Pivot Talk is a virtual stage for businesses to share and learn as they grow. If you think you'd like to be on any one of these shows, or you know someone who would be a great guest for one of these shows, please send me an email. I can be reached at barb@knowncoworking.com. Our purpose in the physical and virtual spaces is to make connections between people. We're here to help you get connected, get inspired, and get known. Now, let me introduce Gina. Welcome, Gina. So glad you're here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Barb. I'm happy to be with you this morning.
I'm really excited to hear about all the resources. I was just telling Gina about, I was thinking back over my history with libraries. And when I was a kid, it was all about books. It was you go to the library, you get books, maybe you go to hear a story. And now it's so much more than books. So,
it really is. The library of the 21st century is something incredible. It's a dream making space, really, is the way I look at it.
And yeah, that's a really cool way to put it. Yeah. So maybe if you started telling us about your role and about Ives Squared, and then whatever comes after that.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump in and kind of show you what I've got for you all this morning. And
okay.
So my name, so I'm Gina Bingham. I started at the New Haven Free Public Library about 2.5 years ago as the business outreach librarian. And then we had been in the process of building a new space that really reflected what the community was asking for in regard to support for entrepreneurship and nonprofits and community space in their library. And so what we have is Ives Squared. And now my role at the library is I am the manager of Ives Squared. I still do head up the business outreach, and I'm in charge of the library's social media. But of course, I do not do it alone. I have an incredible team of people that I work with every day. I am very lucky to have such a supportive team of really talented people. So to kind of give you hold on just one second. I'm having a little bit of technical trouble on my end.
While you're saying that, I want to say that the only social media that I use personally with any regularity is Instagram, and you guys are the bomb. You have so much good stuff to so many different audiences that I'm like, who is doing this? They obviously have professionals, because it's really, and what I'm talking about the social media, but really the social media is representing all of the amazing things that you have going on and all the different pockets of the community whose needs you're meeting and addressing, and all the different like subcultures in the city that you welcome into your space, both virtually and physically.
Absolutely. And there's a team of about 5 or 6 of us. So it really represents the range of expression that's also at the library, the different talents that we all bring to this space that is kind of a representation of the entire city. So I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's great. I'm always impressed.
So I'm going to kind of show you a little bit more about Ives Squared. Ives Squared is this place where it really is all about making and creating. There's something for everyone when they walk in. This newly renovated space is just, it really is awe-inspiring in its design, how it's set up, the technology that we have available for people, and the focus we're looking for as a public library, since we are for everyone, is equity. So it doesn't matter, you know, where you're coming from, where you're going, or how much you make. The public library is there for you, and the space is really representative of that in that sense. So we do focus on entrepreneurship, small business, and nonprofit support, and we do offer a free makerspace in the area as well that has some machines that can be used for small businesses and nonprofits, specifically laser cutter. We have a laser cutter that people can and have used to prototype different types of designs. And then we also offer a vinyl cutter for if you have a logo, you can make things like stickers to hand out for people, all free. The training is free.
Nice.
And it's one of our favorite things to do, to see people take their idea and make a physical representation of it.
Yeah, I did, when you first opened, I did the laser cutting, and I made a keychain and burned the words into it. It was like, I've never done anything like that, and it was so exciting to be able to do it. And it's sitting next to my bedside. That's how important it is to me.
Oh, see, I love that. There's a couple of keychains. I can always see them. I see them around town. I'm like,
yeah,
I'm a squared person.
yeah.
So the part of the library or the part of Ives Squared that's really dedicated to the nonprofit and small business support is what we call the exchange. We're hearkening back in that naming to the innovative history of New Haven, and the exchange was invented in New Haven. So, and it seemed an appropriate name for a place. It's all about exchanging ideas and networking. And
when you say the exchange was invented in New Haven, I don't know what you're talking about.
The telephone exchange.
Oh, the telephone exchange. Because I was like, does she mean like the New York Stock Exchange? Okay, got it.
Yeah. So we do have this mantra of let's build together. We're kind of the mindset that, you know, many hands makes for lighter work, but it also makes for better work. And so we also love to connect people with mentors. We have many partners across the city, including organizations like SCORE, Women's Business Development, you know, the CEDF. And we also are lucky enough to have folks in our space, an entrepreneur in residence and a creative in residence. Yeah. And you can actually see in the far picture on the right there, that is Rick. He was one of our first entrepreneurs in residence, and we will have some new ones coming on in October.
Yeah. And actually, I just want to give a plug because we're friends with all of those folks. So Rick Callahan, who she's talking about there, I first met him as the entrepreneur in residence at the library, and I invited him to come to Known. He ended up getting hired by me personally for my coaching and consulting business and Known, and he became a tenant at Known, or a member of Known, with his creative marketing and branding business. Sammy Williams, who is the current entrepreneur in residence, she and I are in 2 different networking groups together, and she's going to be working with us at Known on some mentoring programs that we're going to be developing. Joel Calloway, who was just the creative in residence, is a friend of Known, and we're trying to get Eric Ray, who was the previous entrepreneur in residence, to come on this show. So maybe he's watching, and maybe this will give him an extra little push to say yes.
See, and you know, we are really lucky in New Haven to have such talent concentrated in a very, you know, kind of a small area, and clearly we're all kind of connected, so it's not hard to find somebody to help you.
Right. And it's amazing that these are free resources at the library. I mean, when I met Rick, because he was entrepreneur in residence, it has led to this cascade of effects that I can't even describe, like the breadth of what has happened as a result of that. So it's just an amazing resource.
Absolutely. And it's something that I think as a librarian, being able to bring that sort of expertise into the space and make it so much more accessible to people in an approachable way is something that I think is just a winner. We really love working with these folks. They become like family, honestly.
Yeah. Good.
So we are kind of focusing this next year on really getting the word out about some of these really fantastic resources that we have. We're affectionately calling it our digital toolbox because there really is so much that you can do with these things.
It looks like a tool shed.
Yeah.
It's bigger than a box.
Yeah. Well, and this is only a fraction of what the library offers you in regard to research. There's much more beyond this, just in general, for information. This is just the ones that are really geared towards the work we do in Ives Square. And we also still have, the newest books, newspapers, magazines. You can still get that as well as part of this space. And just to kind of give the heads up, I know that we're living in kind of, challenging times with physical locations being closed, and we are working at the library to open as much as we can in the next coming months. We do offer curbside, and at the main branch downtown, we have our tech center open, so people can come in by appointment and actually access our computers at this time.
Oh, nice.
In the next coming weeks, we're hoping to expand that for a few more spaces. So stay tuned, and we are reaching out step by step. We all have to do it careful and safe, right?
Of course, yeah.
So the first resource I wanted to talk about today is the one that usually brings people in the door. And this one, a lot of times, the big thing that people are looking for is funding. You've got a nonprofit, you got to pay the bills. And so this resource is Foundation Directory Online, is a research tool that helps nonprofits find foundations and grant makers that are the most likely to fund their projects based on the pattern of past giving. So there is some genius, a genius figured this out. In the past, you had to kind of dig through 990 tax forms to really find out, who did they give this to? And what they have done is made a database that crunches that data for you. It will look through the past 5 years of 990 data, and sometimes further, depending on the query you're giving it, and will tell you, hey, these are the organizations you should really spend some time getting to know, perhaps preparing to approach. And then the Foundation Center, they're based out of Manhattan. They do a really good job of offering extras. So a blog with information about how to approach a foundation that isn't accepting active proposals, that it shouldn't necessarily be a closed door. So there's a lot of really good information on this. Now, this resource is normally only accessible at the main branch per their licensing. So we are one of 8 public library locations in Connecticut that offer this resource. However, for the duration of the pandemic that we're kind of living through right now, they have made a slightly truncated version available for remote use.
Nice.
You can access it through the library website, and I'll show everybody how to do that. If there's one that you really want to take advantage of that flexibility on behalf of the Foundation Center, it's this one. So I'll be highlighting that.
Good to know.
Oh yeah,
that's great.
And then
you're watching people, and actually, while I'm saying that, I do want to say, if people have questions and want to ask Gina something, feel free, if you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook Live, to drop a comment and I'll see it and we'll be able to answer your question.
Absolutely. I love questions. That's my business.
Yeah, that's true. It is your business.
And so while Foundation Directory Online is fantastic, it is just an amazing tool. when folks tend to use it, they'll use it, they think this is wonderful, but they're also looking for active calls for proposals. So things that they can apply to now or plan to apply to in the next 2 months. And so what we added this last year is GrantWatch, which is a portal that congregates all of these active open calls for proposal and allows you to see archived proposals from last year, the year before, so that you can prepare to say, I'm gonna I know I've got time to apply for this. Let's get our team together and really focus on this possibility. So you've got the best of both worlds. You've got active proposals through GrantWatch, and then you've got this pattern of giving over time to see foundations through Foundation Directory Online.
Wow, wonderful. Yeah.
And
talk about time saving. Whew.
Right? It really saves you. It is a frustrating business to go out onto Google and say, try to pick through the internet one by one. That's not to say that you can't find that stuff on the internet. You could, but it would probably take you an enormously frustrating amount of time. And that's what I'm all about with these resources is we'll find you the information and we're going to save you time because you could spend your time doing what you're doing as nonprofits, saving the world. That's how
Yeah.
So the last one I really wanted to highlight today is Prospect Research Online, and a huge shout out to the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven. They actually sponsor this resource tool for us.
Oh, nice.
Yes, they're incredibly generous, and everybody in the nonprofit sphere knows just how incredibly wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Huge fan of the Community Foundation. Absolutely.
Yes, and I get a lot of folks that are trying to start a nonprofit. They're really digging into what that looks like. And the very first thing I tell them is, you've got to know these people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So Prospect Research Online is a little bit different. This one is really geared towards finding individual or corporate fundraising prospects. So it is a conglomeration of many, many research databases.
Okay.
Ones like Zoom, Dun & Bradstreet, my apologies. The Federal Elections Commission is in there as well, so that when you go to look up people that you've interacted at events, maybe you were given a tip that you should know this person, you can do some background knowledge, background reconnaissance, really, on this information and gather more information about, what do their interests kind of look like? Do they sit on boards? Do they give to certain organizations already? And if you can also pull perspective lists of people. I have in the past pulled a list of folks from these that happen to be in these databases that have a wealth capacity of over $500,000 that happen to live in the nearest 5 zip codes.
Oh, nice.
And so yeah, it's nice, and it can, if you feel like this is particularly useful if you feel like as a fundraising organization that you are hitting a brick wall with growing.
Okay.
And so this one is an interesting one to kind of take a look at as well. And it does, it can be very revealing. I will let you know that before I've had some meetings with folks, I've taken the second to look them up and see, okay, hey, I want to know who else is this person connected to.
Okay.
And it can be really revealing. So I did mention the Tinker Lab as well. That's our makerspace, and of course, we love to work with nonprofits in there. We have had some folks come in and make some things like East Street Arts and Marrakesh have come in and used our tools before, and made some really interesting things. We're always happy to help, and this is what gets us up and in the building every day is other people's creativity, and it's great. And everything that we do could not be done without our partners and support. The Ives project is funded by CT Next and the New Haven Innovation Collaborative. And, our partners make all of this happen as well. So it's an incredible group to be part of. And
all your organizations.
they're fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go.
Should I oh yeah, you're going to share the other screen now, right? Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and save that.
Okay.
Everybody sees the back.
It's a great presentation. You should definitely save it.
Sorry for the brief look behind the curtain there. But yeah, if you live in New Haven, also, we are able to give you a library card now, and we can do that remotely too.
Okay, so if somebody never had one, they can still get one?
Absolutely.
Oh, good.
Yes.
I don't know why somebody wouldn't have a library card, but if you don't need to wait until the physical space is open. That's really good to know, because obviously your library card is a window to all of this.
Yes, absolutely. And if you live in New Haven, you can get a New Haven Free Public Library card. If you don't live in New Haven, I work with a group of business librarians across the state of Connecticut. A lot of folks don't know that, their library may have a specific person that really digs into some of this information. Mm-hmm. And statewide, top-notch group of researchers. So, and anyone is welcome to reach out to me as well, and I'll make the introduction for you or help you. If I can help you, I'm happy to do that too. Some of these resources do require the specific New Haven Public Library card. If you're finding that you're having difficulty accessing any of this, though, please feel free to reach out anytime. My email is right there. Yeah, I'm happy to help. And
Question though. So let's say I live in Wallingford. There are some resources at the New Haven Public Library that I can get out because I have a Wallingford library card, right? It's just not all of them.
Not all of them. And currently, digital resources, that's the difficulty. If you have a Wallingford Public Library card, most of our digital stuff will be difficult to access. However, if there's something here that you find could be really useful to you, still reach out. I'm happy to do one-on-one research consultations.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And
good to know.
Yeah, that may also mean that I just pull the data and send it to you.
That's cool. That's wow. That's amazing. And just for the record, I live in New Haven, not Wallingford.
Okay, good. That's like Wallingford's very nice.
Yeah, it is, but it just popped into my head. I've been in their library, and it is a nice library. But I do know, like, when I was like probably in my 30s before I understood that I could use my library card in other libraries. And I think back then you couldn't do it in every library. But in Connecticut, you can take books out in any Connecticut library, can't you?
Yes.
Yeah. And I didn't know that for the longest time. So I think, maybe other people don't know that either.
Yeah, your public library, I think, is probably, I mean, people love the idea of the library, but it's really a good idea to visit and find out, if you haven't been in a while, it is definitely different than what you remember it being.
Yeah, and whenever I've moved to a new town, the first thing I do is register to vote, and the second thing I do is get a library card. And
you know what? You can do that in the same place now too. You can register to vote in the state of Connecticut at your public library.
No kidding. I did not know that. I did not know that.
Yes. So if you haven't, I mean, this is our website. We've got a lot going on. It is one of those things where everything seems to be like shut down and people are kind of, wishing things were more normal, but things are very active at the library. Aside from our spaces being fully open, as you can see, we have take and make kits for both kids and adults.
That's so cool. What a brilliant idea.
They're so fun. It's like takeout, but for fun.
Yeah, fun takeout. Yeah, that's great. I love it.
We've also got virtual programs. We have something going on nearly every day. And I got to, props to our Young Minds and Family Learning team. They do fantastic story times and more. There's always something going on. But to find those resources that we were really talking about, once you're at our library website at NHFPL.org, you want to go to our collections. When you hover over this tab, it does drop down. And then electronic resources, I'm going to show you everything we have because it is really eye-opening when you see just the enormous list of things. These are our featured ones, things that people really kind of might find the most use out of during this time when they can't come in the building. ebooks, audiobooks, music, movies, all of it. Check
Okay,
it
I
out.
didn't know you could do music. I knew about all the other stuff. That's cool.
Hoopla actually offers music, downloadable music that you can listen to. And then also we've got, ebooks. Hoopla also has ebooks on demand, Overdrive. And then movies right now, Canopy. They've got some great films on this.
Awesome.
So
Fantastic.
you can see that there's these tabs where we put things into collections as well. One here is for business, jobs, and nonprofit. And when you click it, it opens up. And you'll see all these tools from our digital toolbox. And you can see also like GrantWatch is here. We've got the foundation directory online. They also offer a nice ebook collection of nonprofit support ebooks. And then we've got our prospect research online. I will say prospect research online and GrantWatch do ask for a specific login. So do feel free to reach out to me and I'll see what I can do to help you out.
Okay.
The first one I wanted to show you though is at the top here where it says foundation directory online. They are offering the temporary directory online access. And I've got it pulled up right here. I don't happen to be at the library right now, so this is what it will look like when you access this remotely as well. And basically what you do is this is where it starts, and it is a real keyword search. It is natural language enabled, so it does its best to interpret what you're looking for based on what you put in. So if I was to say, we're looking to fund an art school in Michigan, and then I hit search, it will bring up these grant makers that have given to this sort of project over the last 5 years. So you can see the Skillman Foundation, Grand Rapids Community Foundation, Kalamazoo, the Kellogg Foundation. And you can look at a whole list and export it, or you can go in to see their grant maker profile, which I'm going to do now so you can see kind of what that looks like. And when you see your grant maker profile, you'll see, oh, okay, they give largely to education, human services, community development, philanthropy, all these sorts of buckets of money where they're giving money, which largely in Michigan, but you'll see that they also tend to give in our area as well. And then how much those grants are usually for, so that if you are getting ready to ask for funding, do you ask for 5,000 or do you ask for 10 based on their pattern of giving over the past? And you can learn all sorts of other things from this profile. As you go through, they've got these pathfinders on the left that allow you to take a look. It does give you some background on them. It will suggest other funders to consider. This is still being developed by the community, or it's by the Foundation Center. So I would maybe not necessarily rely on this versus that list we saw before. Sometimes it's matching foundations based on something that doesn't have to do with your search. So something to watch, but I found that it's better to go back to the list. And then, yeah, it'll show you information about how to apply and if they have open RFPs. And so this one is showing, an application form is required and they should be ready to submit this information. It also tells you how to do your initial approach for this organization and when their board meets, which can be really handy if you're looking to make connections or planning to say, okay, we missed this one, but their board's likely going to make decisions coming up.
So what this is all making me think is something that I have a friend and colleague, her name is Takia Green, and she's a grant writer. Her business is called Divine Writing Solutions. And I also follow her on Instagram. And the message that I get from her repeatedly is do your homework, do your homework, do your homework, do your homework, because a lot of nonprofits don't really understand how much work they need to do in terms of getting funding. And it's really clear this is the place to do it. Like you
Oh,
can get so much background information at just these little things. Like I would never think, let's see when their board meets. But you're right, because they're the ones that make the funding decisions. So if they just met last week, that means they probably meet quarterly, and then I have, 12 more weeks before I get my application in or something like that. That's great. Love
absolutely.
it. Love it.
It's so good. And this is another interesting little tool that they've got here, this Who's Who. Sometimes when you click on this, it'll tell you who's on that board based on that past 990 form when they have to declare this information. Sometimes there'll be a little LinkedIn symbol here. And if you're logged into LinkedIn and you see that symbol, if you click it, it will connect your LinkedIns and show you any connections you might possibly have.
Nice, because going through a connection is infinitely more fruitful than making a cold call. Oh my goodness.
Absolutely.
I can, and that's actually one of the things that I do best. I was telling Gina before the show is I am a connector. It is what I do. There is nothing that jazzes me more than making connections between two people, a person and an organization, a person and a resource, a person and information. And I love to be able to be the person that does that. And when you have a warm introduction, it makes all the difference in the world than if you just cold email somebody. So that's brilliant. I love that.
Really, really good. And as LinkedIn becomes one of those things, you've got to have a LinkedIn, this should become more and more useful over time. Now, this is a truncated version of the normal, the pro version. This is Foundation Directory Online Essential. If you happen to be on site or using the library's Wi-Fi, so our IP address, then you would see a couple more options when you go to search for that art school.
Got it.
You will see also something very useful in the sense that not just the grant maker profiles, but you can see the grants that were awarded and the recipients. So a lot of times you can do some interesting information with that. If you know of a nonprofit that does something like what you do in, say, Utah or Nevada, and you want to know where are they getting their funding from, you can look them up and see, hey, where are they approaching and are they successful in doing that? And it's really useful. Something I would say is if you want more information on this, we are so lucky to have a great working relationship with the makers of this themselves. And we're having a virtual workshop with them in September and in October for Susan Shiroma works for the Foundation Center, and she'll be doing a really overview of how to look for grants. And then in October, an overview of the main parts of this tools to really, and she's great with questions. She loves them.
Wow, that sounds great. I'm thinking of both Anne Marie and Takia, who I hope are watching this, who are going to want to be part of that.
Well, I'm happy to send out that information. Invite anybody that you know.
Yeah, please. Yeah,
absolutely. Great. And then,
I did want to ask you a question. Okay, so one of the things you said here was the grants. I can't read the tiny writing underneath it, even though I got my new glasses yesterday or before yesterday. The question I have is, I know that like I used to work at Yale, and everything we did was funded by grants, and I was actually on GrantWatch. Like I put in a profile, and I would get an email like weekly about these are grants that that are being funded that you might qualify for. But anyway, what we found really helpful was when we could find a grant, like the person's application that had been funded, to be able to read it, to say, like, what did they say? How did they structure it? Because some funders give you very strict guidelines for exactly how you write, and others don't. And so to see somebody whose application was funded can be enormously helpful. Is that what you're talking about here? And if not, is there someplace else in here where people can get their hands on something like that?
Great question. It doesn't show up in this resource. It will give details as to how much and what for, but very high level. Like this is the project it was for, the years it was funded, how many years in succession they were funded. But as far as those actual applications, I'm going to have to do some digging and see if
Yeah.
I can find out if there's anything like that. It's not exactly the same thing as, say, like the Securities Exchange Commission for businesses, where if you're publicly traded, you have to divulge that.
Okay.
But I think if anything had it, I'm going to look at GuideStar and see.
Okay.
But I don't think that I've ever seen something like that.
Well, I think that even if somebody really wanted to see that, they could see who was funded and reach out to that person or that organization and say, hey, would you be willing to allow us to read your application? And there's some folks are going to go, absolutely. And other people are going to say, no way, because they don't want for the money. But, it's like the business, I was in a college, we did college access programming, and we want everybody on the planet to have funding to give college access, especially to urban students. So we were like, read away,
Yeah. Now, I would suspect that anything that's publicly funded through, say, like a government grant, that might be easier to find, just because
that's true. Yeah.
it might be public information. And I'll have to do some digging on that. I'll get back to you on it, Barb.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. So you mentioned the next one I kind of wanted to highlight for folks is this GrantWatch. This is new to us. Mm-hmm. Like I said, when people come in and they see Foundation Directory online, they're like, oh, but I really want things I can apply to now. Mm-hmm. And that's why this last year we went out and got access to GrantWatch. And GrantWatch is exactly that. It is a massive database of open calls for proposals, and it will let you search past grants that have a likelihood of being repeated. Mm-hmm. So for instance, here you can start with just a keyword search, or you can actually change the location. I find that a lot of times folks are looking for something a little bit more local. And so I'll just switch over to Connecticut GrantWatch. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of take a look and see what's there. Nice. This is stuff that's popping up that has a really near deadline. And you can also just say, oh, you know what? I really want to take a look at some of this stuff. And my main focus for the project I'm doing, I know this is tiny writing, but this says mental health. Okay. I'm going to click on that, and then it will bring you Connecticut grants, or grants that are people in Connecticut are eligible for, that are keyword basically on mental health.
Wow, that's fantastic. I somehow had a profile set up where I had emails sent to me pretty regularly, actually. Yes. I remember being like, annoying. But when you need it, so, exactly. But do you know if people can do that here in this particular iteration of the data set?
So basically this one is set up through us. That is why with our license and agreement, and actually I'm hoping to expand that a little bit in the next coming time. If I can, we're working out something. I'm talking with them now to say, hey, I'd love to expand this. What are my options? But right now we are working off of like our account. So this is one that reach out to me, tell me what you're looking for, and I will I'll dig until you get what you want.
Okay, great. That's so amazingly helpful. So saying that you've offered that twice, like what are the limits to how much time? Because I could see someone saying to you, I need this and this and this and this and this and this. Like what are the limits to what you're able to help people with?
I think it depends on our capacity. I do have a few librarians that I regularly work with to provide this. It kind of depends on how fast you need it, and then just kind of mitigating that expectation. I mean, we are kind of, doing a couple of other things, but of course, anytime somebody needs access to information or questions answered, it becomes the ultimate priority.
Okay.
So I would say that we also are, absolutely. If somebody wants to set up an appointment, we can do that. I've had weekly appointments with people until we were able to finish a possible project. Usually we're able to kind of help people in 1 or 2 appointments, and then they find what they need and come back to us later when they've got another question.
Yeah, I was just thinking about before the show, Gina and I were talking about boundaries and how sometimes in a professional setting, it's hard to set a boundary with people, and that might be a sticky situation sometime when if somebody's like, oh my God, I need, and I don't have a staff, or I don't have enough staff, that I could see them kind of milking the library staff dry. And so my question was kind of like, where's the boundary?
Yeah.
for that sort of thing. So it sounds like, that's not usually an issue for your staff and
Not
people are pretty
really.
respectful. That's good to know. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we're honest with people. We'll say, hey, if you need this right now, then it might be a little difficult for us. We might be able to get it to you at this point. So, if you're looking for something that's turned around in 5 minutes and we have to say, hey, we might need a little bit of time. But we do work on it as fast as we possibly can.
So, while we're on this conversation, what are your thoughts about how far ahead people should be doing this kind of work before they actually need the funding in hand?
I would say, this is from my experience I used to work also at a university where we were on a very grant funded project, and our grant calendar was forecasted out probably a year or more. It was, I would say that I would recommend folks talk to a lot of folks that their real main focus is grant funding. But I personally remember thinking, oh, you know what? If we have a calendar, we build out that calendar for a year, then we can feel better prepared to say, oh, hey, next quarter, this is coming up. We need to make sure we have our ducks in a row to be able to have the best chance of applying. And there are a lot of tools out there that allow you to set up calendars that are, allow you to organize your grant funding or your grant funding strategies in a lot of different ways.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
And actually, while I'm asking a question, I have another question that I have a friend who, his big thing is in the state of Connecticut, there are way too many nonprofit organizations, and that people just decide, I'm going to start a nonprofit organization without doing any research whatsoever to see who's doing what in the state of Connecticut. And is there a way for me to put my energy and efforts and talents and resources behind theirs so that we're not, one, reinventing the wheel, and two, diluting the funding going to this particular area. And, I don't know how true that is. My gut tells me it probably is pretty true, but do you have thoughts about that?
I do. And, I think it's coming from a really good place that folks come in. I do get a lot of folks that come in the library and say, I want to start a nonprofit because I want to give, and this is my idea. And when they say their idea, I almost immediately, there's probably 3 people kind of already working in that realm, usually. And I try and let them know, oh, hey, have you checked out what so-and-so is doing? Or have you connected with those folks over there? You might want to talk to them, in that sense of kind of letting them know, hey, you're getting into a realm where there is competition for funding. And also, I'm a big proponent of, if you've got a great idea, then there's a lot of possibility for collaboration. Rather than starting and running your own nonprofit, which is no easy feat. It may be better to say, hey, I've got this project idea. Would it be possible to talk about working together? And this is a grant I'm thinking about. Like those connections with those organizations that are interested in doing the same work you are, building that network, and then feeling like at some point you can take your idea to those folks and have an honest conversation about, hey, I think this is important, and I think we can find funding working together. Because starting a nonprofit, it's a big lift, especially.
When I think about like all of the work that goes into the beginning of that, and all of the time and energy and resources that it takes to start a whole new one again, why couldn't you just, instead of using all of that time and energy and talent, put that much into assisting an organization that's already doing the work, if possible. I mean, maybe you have a completely different sort of tack that you're taking on it, but at least check out what else is already going on so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
And that's the interesting thing. When you look in Foundation Directory online and you see who's funding who, especially when it's very local, like New Haven, it's always top of the list, Community Foundation of Greater New Haven, because they are so giving and so wonderful to our community. But they know who's out there working in that sphere. So they may come and ask. Funders do their research too.
Yes.
So if you say something like, I'm the only one that's doing this, and that's not necessarily the case, you got to do your homework. It's really
Right.
important.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. And so it really is just it is nice to kind of get a sense of like how much funding is really out there too. And that's a great question. I mean, one that we could probably do a panel discussion on and get a lot of different people, I think, probably saying the same thing in regard to that question.
Yeah. I just this friend had gotten to he had been a wrestler his whole growing up life and in college and everything. And he had gotten involved with his college access program, and I was like, oh, this kid is on the wrestling team. Let's meet. And he ended up getting connected with that wrestling team. And it turned out they wanted to start a nonprofit because they lost their funding from the school district. And he was like, hold your roll here, because there's a lot of nonprofits that already exist out there. And then he ended up doing a whole bunch of investigating. And then this is a thing, like he harped on me. He's like, so many people want to start something, and it's just not necessary to start your own nonprofit in a lot of circumstances. Of course, there are some circumstances where it is necessary. But it sounds like, the big message I'm getting from you is do your homework, do your homework, do your homework.
Yeah. And work your network. If you aren't necessarily connected with those folks doing similar work, you probably should be. So ask for introductions, go to events where you know that folks will likely be, and then start those conversations. Conversations are so incredibly powerful and necessary to really getting the work done.
Yeah, and I'm going to put your email address back up here again, and we'll put the other New Haven Free Public Library stuff up there again. But I just want to really recommend that if you have questions about any of this stuff, that you reach out to Gina. As you can see, she's an enormous wealth of information, incredibly approachable and friendly and kind as well.
Thank you. I know it's really funny. A lot of folks think that librarians become librarians because they love books and that we read all day, and couldn't be further from. Well, I love books, but it couldn't be further from the truth. Most of the business is people and working with people, and it's incredibly rewarding in that sense. So don't be afraid to reach out. Reach out.
Right. And if anybody has comments or questions right now, they can go ahead and leave them. And also, if you are watching the replay of this, you can feel free to leave a comment, and we'll get it to Gina if it's appropriate.
All right. And Barb, I had one more. Do we have time to do a quick show of it?
We do. We have 13 minutes, and just Rick is piping in and saying, Gina is great.
Rick is great.
Yes, he is. And I don't know if he heard us, but we were bragging about him earlier. Yeah, we have more than 10 minutes, so feel free.
Okay. The last one I wanted to kind of highlight just really quickly, because there's a ton and this is really just high level sort of dip the toes in tastes of what is really part of these resources. The last one is called Iprowave. And it is that funding database that I was talking about before, where you're finding individuals that you might want to approach, building those donor lists, things like that. And so what this database does is it's tiny, but you can see across this, these are all separate databases that you can access individually if you like.
Wow.
They all serve a different purpose. Like, for instance, this one here is political giving. So you can see any sort of political giving that an individual may have done. Insider filings, you can see if they're part of foundations or charities. This one's an interesting one, prospects of wealth. This is where all those super rich people are, and I am not in that database, just to let everybody know. But it is really interesting to see. You can see real estate listings, so if people own property. It does pull from a lot of public and some private sources to really build basically profiles. And something interesting about this database is it will use an algorithm to score people on the likelihood that they would give to your type of organization or project.
Wow.
Now, there's some settings in here that are set for the score. So this one is set right now to social services and social support giving, because that is what most people come to the library. Most nonprofits that use us often are these sorts of agencies in town. Mm-hmm. And so it is weighted to that in the settings. And then you can weight it even further based on a couple of different aspects. Mm-hmm. But just in general, if you wanted to just do a quick get score, basically, I'm going to click this and you can just put in a name. So I was playing around with this the other night and I decided that it's interesting to see what actually pops up. So for instance, if I'm going to go in here and put in Warren Buffett. And you can see that it pulled Warren E. Buffett, owns property in Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska. I'm going to go ahead and click this. And the profile score for Warren Buffett, it'll just take a moment. Got a score 2. 2's not bad. It means that in the past he has given to something like that or has the capacity to. In general, sometimes you'll see it pop up and it'll be a 3, a 4, or a 5. The higher the score, based on Prospect Research Online's algorithms, the more likely they are a match for your organization and the focus of your projects. So if this was a 5, I would say absolutely this is somebody that you need to put on your list to think about approaching if they are not already a funder for you.
Mm-hmm. So is 5 the range, 0 to 5?
Yeah, so it's I believe it goes to 5. It may cap out at 4. I've never seen a 5. Okay. I have seen a 4, and I've seen a lot of 3s, especially in New Haven. There's a lot of 3s.
Yeah. Okay.
But it does base a lot of this on this 360 search. If I was to go ahead and search, say, somebody like I've often searched Tony Harp when she was the previous mayor. And you can see that when it does go ahead and do the search, it will pull up records from across all these databases, and you can pull all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. Likely, I will not necessarily display all of the personal information for our former mayor, so I'll probably not let this go through the complete search, but it is incredibly useful. And you can see all those records pop up, but I'm going to go ahead and Warren Buffett probably shouldn't care, but
yeah, he's much more of a public figure than Tony Harp is, at least outside of New Haven he is anyway.
Exactly. But that quick little snapshot, maybe that quick little peek, it does kind of give you a sense of just how incredibly in-depth and powerful that particular resource is. And that is one that I usually do a one-on-one session with people when they want to dig into it, even when we're open to the public and it's just accessible to scroll through. There's a lot. So I'm happy to kind of help people out with that particular one. And we'll be setting up a webinar online for that one in the fall sometime. So
okay, great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Shall I unshare the screen now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so back to us. So this is amazing, and what an incredible amount of resources. And I know that you've really just kind of shown us the tip of the iceberg. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, obviously we've given them your email. Let me put that back up again. And I'll also put up the other New Haven Free Public Library stuff, which, by the way, burning question, I've always had it. I always forget to ask, why free public library? Aren't all public libraries free?
No, in fact, here's the thing. We actually in New Haven it's an interesting kind of historical fact. The Institute Library also is here in New Haven, and it is when libraries first started, a lot of them were subscription based to pull their funding from their usership. And so the Institute Library is actually one of the few remaining subscription-based libraries in the nation. And they're wonderful over there too. And but that is why we are the New Haven Free
Public Library. Okay, good to know. So somebody emails you and they want help with you.
Mhm.
Are they going to be having like a Zoom meeting with you and you're doing the stuff online? Are they going to be coming to the library? I know you said that there's some appointment-based tech searches that are able to be done. What's that going to
Mhm.
look like?
So I'm flexible. I mean, a lot of folks are flexible these days to what works best for you. I do a lot of work over the phone because
Hmm.
I do find that people will give me a call.
Hmm.
And a lot of times people are used to calling the reference desk and they'll just forward it to my phone. So that's usually where the conversation starts. But right now, we also have a newly launched chat feature on our website.
Oh,
You can go on.
cool.
Oh yeah, it's great. And so you will reach a person. It's not a bot, it's one of us.
Oh, nice.
And also, we get some reference questions through our social media sometimes, and it ends up finding its way to somebody that can help you best. So don't hesitate. That's why we have all those open channels of
Right.
information.
Okay.
And yeah, it's great. And sometimes the question you may ask me, I may not be your best resource. So I may connect you with the
Yeah.
person I think can answer that question the best.
Wonderful. Do you have any last thoughts, anything that you haven't shared that you wish that you did share? Anything
Oh
you'd
my
like
gosh,
to
you've been so gracious to let me just share as much as I like.
Yeah, no, I mean, this has been fantastic. And I clearly you have more. Maybe we'll have you come back again in a few months to share more. I think that'd
That
be
would be
great.
amazing.
Yeah.
I would say the one thing I would is actually not necessarily something else to share, but to encourage people to do is the library is listening. It's not a place where we decide what is best for you. It's a conversation always where we invite people to give us feedback on
Mhm.
what they want to see. The library is yours and it's
Yeah.
ours. It's everybody's. So if this is something that isn't working for your purpose, we are always open to that feedback so that we can improve for our community. That's
Mhm.
really all. A lot of what we do is responsive to what our community
Mhm.
needs and has told us they want. So check it out. It's totally free.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Gina. This has been fantastic. And if you want to stay on the line for a minute so we can chat, I'm
Sure.
going to just close out. So thank you again to Gina
Oh,
Bingham from the New
thank
Haven Free
you.
Public Library I Square. Thanks again. And before we go, I just want to remind you that next week on Digital Media Sync, which is always at 8:30 on Tuesday mornings, Julia will be featuring Letitia Douglas, who's going to talk about Zapier, which is a way to connect your apps and automate workflows. So tune in then. Thanks again.